today by an amazing guest, Terry Beatley, and she is the author of What If We've Been Wrong? Keeping My Promise to America's Abortion King, the president of Hosea Initiative. In a rare interview in 2009, Terry was commissioned by Dr. Bernard Nathanson, the regretful co-founder of NARAL and father of America's abortion industry, to teach Americans the strategy of how he unleashed abortion onto the nation by deceiving millions with 8 points of propaganda. She promised Dr. Nathanson to deliver his personal parting message until it becomes common knowledge. Terry founded Hosea Initiative in 2011, a nonprofit 501c3 educational organization, as the conduit to deliver this healing truth. Leveraging the power of redemptive storytelling, she tells the conversation story of Dr. Nathanson and showcases the good news that even the most egregious sinner who repents can receive the love and mercy of Jesus Christ. The impact of worldviews on politics, culture, and national sovereignty are woven into her presentations as well. Terry has taught hundreds of thousands of Americans through public appearances, radio and television interviews, and Hosea Initiatives liberated by truth conferences. International outreach includes Germany, Albania, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Israel. Terry's book, What If We've Been Wrong, was released in September 2016, and she's working on a feature film about the legacy of Dr. Nathanson and the impact of radical feminism. She is president of the God, Guns, and Life Super PAC. Oh, I love that. And earned the title Worst Virginian in the World. And that's a good title, actually, after strategizing the defeat of Virginia's most pro-abortion, anti-parental rights state senator. And after having spent a lot of time in Virginia as a Navy SEAL, I'm glad you did that. Thank you. Passionate about holistic healthcare, Terry is also a senior presidential director elite with LifeWave, which produces the world's only stem cell phototherapy activation patch. And just before the show, we were discussing how we sat at a table in a LifeWave event. So, I say that LifeWave was given to us by God, and you, I think, are on a mission from God. So, Terry, let's talk about it. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. So let's go back. You can go wherever you want, but I was so intrigued by your upbringing, your father, and how he talked about some of these organizations that you got exposed to in college. Let's kind of start out there.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know where you read about that one. Wow, was that on my bio or somewhere? How'd you know that?
You did a show where you talked about it. I know, okay, we're all like all over the map sometimes. We're like, where did I say that?
I just know we hadn't already talked about that. No, it's funny. My freshman year at college, I arrived home at Thanksgiving time. And I grew up in a very politically conservative family. A normal dinner time conversation was talking about some aspect of communism. Okay. That was very normal in my family. My dad was just so opposed to communism, socialism, and he could see what was happening, in America. And I'm 62. I remember these conversations when we still lived in Fairfax, Virginia. So I had to have been 12 years old or younger. And that was just like a normal conversation. So anyway, so when I come home for Thanksgiving break, my freshman year, so I guess I'm 18 years old, I said, Dad, there's this organization I'm thinking about joining. It's all about women and women's rights or something like that. And he said, what is the name of this? And I said, oh, it's the National Organization for Women. And my father looked at me real stern and he said, sit down. So the irony.
His background, was he in the military?
Well, he did serve in the Korean War, not in combat, in communications. But nice. My father was a patriot. He started the Fairfax County, Virginia, the very first taxpayer union, to try to keep taxes low. The thing is still in existence today. Yeah, my dad loved the country and he was very, very well read. And I'm so grateful my dad said, sit down. And the irony of this is all these years later, I think this would be a fun way to kick off this interview, as I can actually read part of this. Years later, after I get very involved in pro-life, which we'll delve into that, I meet this lady named Mallory Millett. Well, actually, I read about her, and I was like, back then I actually had a podcast too, and I have got to interview this lady, Mallory Millett, for my podcast. So back then, she was probably 80 years old, and she tells the story of her sister back in the 60s becoming a fallen away Catholic who becomes a radical Marxist communist. And Mallory tells the story, which once she told the story and actually read it in depth, I'm like, Mallory, we have to take your story and get it into what we call a fact check booklet. It's like 4 inches by 6 inches. It's like 38 pages long, with big pictures, lots of big bold writing, and tell your story of what your sister did, because we're living in it. These are the crazy times, because her sister hated men, her sister hated marriage, and she hated the United States of America. And she set out to deconstruct the Western Hemisphere, particularly our nation, using lies and propaganda. And we tell the whole thing in this booklet. It's wild. Yeah. So anyway, so that's my connection back to Dad and NOW and Sit Down. And then years later, I'm literally writing a booklet about the co-founder of NOW, which is devouring young women, on college campuses.
Yeah.
If you think about these, young ladies who go off to college, and then you give them 1, 2, 3, 4 years, they return back home at some point radical feminists. And you're kind of like, what the hell went wrong with her? Right? Well, they've been taught, many people have probably heard of women's studies. That's a degree now, women's studies. Guess who launched that on college campuses? Kate Millett, the co-founder of NOW. Mallory Millett's sister. So Mallory, the good sister, is on our not the board of directors, but on our advisory team at Hosea Initiative. So I can kind of delve into that, but I don't want to have a monologue here. So you go ahead and ask me your questions.
So where did this all start from? We can go back to, the abortion.
Yeah.
Where did that, going back in time, those people that were, pushing abortion. I read a little bit about this, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Where did it come from?
How I got involved with this, and then
all the way back to Sanger. So,
Margaret Sanger. Well, I mean, many of your followers probably know that Margaret Sanger was the founder of what we now call Planned Parenthood, but she didn't start it with that title, Planned Parenthood. Back then, it was called American Birth Control League. Well, I find it really interesting that she started her mission to spread controlling births. She has 3 primary principles. If people will memorize these 3 things, they understand Planned Parenthood. She believed in promiscuity, rampant promiscuity. That woman participated in orgies and God knows what else.
Wow.
She believed it, practiced it, promoted it. And that's part of the rotten fruit we see from Planned Parenthood today, which, by the way, our tax money has spent billions of dollars supporting the worldview of Margaret Sanger to push that. It's a religion, okay? So we should no more be supporting the worldview of Planned Parenthood, because it doesn't have a thing to do with women's health care. It's all about controlling births, promoting promiscuity, and then promoting eugenics, the purification of the race. So Margaret Sanger believed in all this. She practiced this, and she partnered up with the American Eugenics Society, which had already been in existence, but they knew they needed a woman as the face of the eugenics movement, but under the guise of controlling births.
Now,
Okay.
eugenics, did that go all the way back to Nazi Germany? Is that where it originated from, or where does
Well,
that?
no, they got their ideas from us.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Wow.
no, yeah, and I'm forgetting the guy's name. I should have written his name down. If I think long enough, I can remember. No. They got their ideas about eugenics from the American Eugenics Society and the American Birth Control League. Yeah, and in fact, one of the writers for Margaret Sanger's American Birth Control League pamphlet, which they would produce. Maybe it wasn't once a month, maybe it was once a quarter, but they produced, obviously there was no internet back then, no podcast going on. So everything was in writing and print. Right. And one of the writers for that was the man who worked for Hitler, who wrote the sterilization policies.
Wow.
Yeah. So he got his ideas from Margaret Sanger. So, let's just kind of, so we got promotion of rampant promiscuity, the promotion of eugenics, that she could purify the race. Well, who did she want to purify out? Minorities, poor people, people of Latin descent.
She was racist. Yeah, she wanted to take out the black community, and and then, like you say, sterilize them. Same thing within the Native American community. They would go in and sterilize them too. We're going to do a check, and they'd sterilize them. It's like, oh my God, it was insane.
Yeah, and they would use, I know a lot of people know this, but I know some don't. By 1939, I'm just going to call it Planned Parenthood. They didn't switch their name to that till 39, in the beginning of World War II. It didn't sound very good. American Birth Control League. So they switched it over to Planned Parenthood, for marketing purposes, so, and then we give courses. It's the crash course, because most people are not weird like me, where I read books about Planned Parenthood that are this thick, and I read them 3, 4, or 5 times, and they're all highlighted notes and eared and all that. But what we like to do is take all this complex history of the last 100 years and drill it down decade by decade by decade. So as Josh helps get me out on these larger podcasts like yours and others, my vision, and I do mean this, what I want to work toward is our webinars, where we could have 100,000 people on the webinar at a given moment, where we could crash course, get this information into the hands of people. Because I don't believe, and I've presented this to military generals and lieutenant generals and retired lieutenant generals, and I'll look them right in the eye, and it's like, and retired lieutenant generals, and I'll look them right in the eye, and it's like, we don't save this nation, is my opinion, but I can back it up, with scripture, that we don't save this nation if we continue to slaughter God's innocent children in the womb. He tells us in Deuteronomy, he'll send in the enemy, and maybe they're going to look like radicalized, Islamists. And in Deuteronomy 28, God tells us how he will curse a nation that keeps flipping the middle bird at God. And I think God's been pretty daggone patient. Last 50 some years, we got 65 million minimum aborted children.
Oh my God. I had no idea it was that many. Jeez. Yeah.
But
Roe versus Wade, when that was overturned, I think God was like, okay, I'm not going to destroy you.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. And then I'll get into the whole Nathanson thing, but I got one more interesting data point about Planned Parenthood. When Roe was overturned, though, I was happy, but I wasn't happy because my perception this was over. I was happy because now we had the opportunity to get the job done. And I knew it was going to turn worse before it would get better, because the people walk in darkness. If there is any I'll throw something out there, if there's a black man or a black woman who supports abortion, who supports pro-abortion candidates, I'm going to say right now, they need to have their head examined. And I know it's missing history, because they don't know the racist history of Planned Parenthood. So my first opportunity to go, not just talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. We can talk all day long, right? Your military background, you can talk all you want, but it's like it requires action. So I decided,
talk the talk, but you better walk the walk.
You better walk the walk. So way back around, it was April of 2009. Actually, before I go there, just hold that thought for 1 second. I want to just drop this number. Imagine if we woke up the next 2 weeks and we found out that the 400,000 population, do you mind my asking what state are you in? Do you let that information out of the box?
Nevada. I'm in Nevada.
You're Nevada. Okay, I don't happen to have any cities here, but let's just say you lived in, or anyway, Oakland, California. The population is 419,000. Guess how many babies Planned Parenthood killed in their last fiscal year? 402,230 babies. So if you woke up and you found out the entire population of Oakland, California had been wiped out over the past year, would you be like, ain't no big deal? Come on, pass the mashed potatoes.
Wow.
No, we'd be like, what the hell is going on? All right, what about this? What if you woke up and you found out the entire population of Minneapolis, Minnesota was gone? That's what Planned Parenthood did their last fiscal year. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Wichita, Kansas, New Orleans, Louisiana, Arlington, Texas. These are cities that have about 400,000 people in them. And, figuratively speaking, Planned Parenthood came in and wiped out the population.
Crazy.
And we just keep thinking about what are we going to thaw out for dinner, while Planned Parenthood, and I worked out the math on it, they are killing, if you take a 6-day-a-week work week, if they're killing children 6 days a week with our tax money, okay? I don't care how they play around with the money. If $1 goes from taxes to Planned Parenthood, even if that dollar is used to pave their driveway, nobody needs to buy that bull crap. It's $1 to go kill a baby. So 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, they're killing, just Planned Parenthood alone, 160 babies per day.
Wow.
Okay. Per hour. I'm sorry. 160 children per hour, 6 days a week. Okay. So it's not about women's health care. Planned Parenthood, it's a propaganda organization. It is not women's health care. It's propaganda pushing the worldview of population control, promiscuity, eugenics, controlling births. And then what Margaret Sanger believed in was revolutionary socialism, but her niche, her little carved out niche, was sexual liberation. She wanted women, and she put this in writing, and we saw it. Michael, we saw it. So she put in writing that she believed women should have that go to hell look in their eyes, and she believed women should have the right to create and the right to destroy. Margaret Sanger hated marriage. She hated the marriage bed, and she wanted women to go put on those pink hats. Walk with me on this one. Wow. Those million women that descended upon Washington, D.C. when President Trump won, and the day after the inauguration, the 1 million women descend. I can't remember, it was the day before or the day after, and they were throwing tampons in people's faces. It was exactly the 100-year, I call it the 100-year curse of Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood. But I believe with Donald Trump coming in, and I don't even think that man knows yet, his arrival in 2016, if we can get the nation educated, and I will be the tip of the spear. I don't mind. But we got to have platforms like yours where we're pushing this across the United States, and then be able to duplicate the information, get the people educated, get people using our resources that are so inexpensive. That was the 100-year curse, because she got started in 1916. Trump won in 2016. Wow. We have to take down the shackle that holds America in bondage. It's not a lot of this other stuff that we're working on. Yes, we gotta work on a lot of that other stuff for sure. But it hinges on what we do with life, God's gift of life. That's it.
Fantastic. Now, this is your website, hoseaforyou.org. And I was like, how did you come up with that, Hosea? And then I saw, my people perish for lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Wow. I was like, that's so beautiful. And you made your website with that, and for you. So we don't have to perish anymore, because we're going to be, made knowledgeable by you and through your work. Now, let's go into how you met this gentleman, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, and how this all started for you.
Sure. Yeah. I had been in the corporate world from 27 to about 40 years old. Now, I'm only 42, so no, just kidding. Many years ago. But I had been in the corporate world from early 20s till about 40. And then, see if I got my years right. Yeah. Then I decided to homeschool my children. So I walked away from a very successful career in the corporate world. And it was during those early homeschooling years, I realized that my local delegate, who had always marketed himself as like a moderate Democrat, had completely sold out to the abortion lobby. He had voted to allow minor girls in Virginia to have abortions without parental consent or knowledge. He voted just anything for the abortion industry. I'm like, this is crazy. And so really it was understanding how my parental rights were being eviscerated. Then, I'm trying to skip some of the details. So I get involved with protecting parental rights. So I volunteer as Virginia coordinator for parentalrights.org. I'm traveling all across the state of Virginia and making it widely known about the domestic and international threat to parental rights, because back then, under Obama, there was a big push for the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child Treaty. And if the president signed it with 2/3 of the United States Senate support, basically parental rights could be kissed goodbye.
Wow.
And Mama Bear was like, I'll put on my Marine suit and I will fight like a Marine, and I'll take a bullet in my back. And then that was during the couple beginning years of Obama. And then I had been trying to get in touch with a Black minister to talk with him about the same things. I was going to NAACP meetings, or Republican meetings, church meetings. I never had an invitation to a Democrat Party meeting. I did get into an NAACP. And then I got referred to this Black minister. So this is how that issue, the loss of parental rights, intersects with the abortion industry and the lobby. What happened was I played phone tag with this minister, and he'd call back. We could never connect. And then I saw this movie called Ma'afa 21, Black Genocide in the 21st Century. Now, I had already been reading about the abortion industry. I was so perplexed. How did we win the Civil War only to embrace the slaughter of, the innocents? And so that this time the pastor picks up the phone, and I pivoted, and I decided to ask him for a 3-hour appointment so we could watch this documentary about the racist history of Planned Parenthood, and then 30 minutes to talk, which would include the loss of parental rights due to the abortion lobby. And so when I was walking up the steps that day, because it was an election year in Virginia for the House of Delegates, and I didn't want him to think I was just exposing all this just so, I'm trying to get some political party, vote. I just wanted him to know what was happening to Black babies because of government-funded Planned Parenthood. So I walk up the steps and I'm like, God, please don't let me talk politics, because growing up in a politically active family, I'm very comfortable talking politics, talking religion. I'm comfortable. I'm more comfortable talking that than most things. But I didn't want to start talking politics in any way. So we watched the documentary, and at the end, I'll just say, as a white person watching the history of Planned Parenthood, if you're not watching the film with the proper lens on, the lens of worldview, you might think it's a white versus black thing, but it's not. It's a non-Christian worldview versus a biblical worldview. Because all people are made in the likeness and image of God. Doesn't matter the tint of your skin, right? So when it was over, I just said, Pastor Bibbins, tell me what you think. And this is where God just, again, began to change the trajectory of my life. The pastor rolled his chair forward. He wagged his finger at me like this. Literally, my first thought was, oh my gosh, he hates all white people. But that's not what he said. He wagged his finger like this and he said, I'll tell you what I think. I will never again vote for a pro-abortion candidate for as long as I live. For if I do, I'm voting to annihilate my own race. And furthermore, I get it now. Abortion's wrong. OMGG. He just answered me with a political answer.
Beautiful.
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
And that's when I forgot to share this on the previous podcast I was just on. And it's always stuck with me, though. It was as if, this is where Jose Initiative picked up its motto years later. We have two mottos, bringing healing truth and then educate for action. It was as if Jesus was picking up, this issue of uniting America back on life, because we have no choice if we're going to save the nation. Okay. It's like oxygen, right? You can eat all the peanut butter and jelly you want, eat the best food, do whatever. But if you don't breathe oxygen, you ain't going to live, right? Well, we're not going to save the nation if we continue to just obliterate, 1 to 1.5 million of God's children every year. It's just not going to work. So anyway, I forget where I was going with that thought. Oh, it was like God was just pulling back the shears of the curtains, because he had these long curtains in his office with these shears. And it was as if the shears were pulled back and they were light. And our motto is loving others with the truth.
Beautiful.
And sometimes the truth is really ugly. White Terry sitting with a black minister, exposing the racist history of Planned Parenthood thanks to a bunch of racist, white, God-hating people, right? But it's the truth.
Yeah.
And then we united. Then he asked me to come to his church 2 months later. In June of 2009, we had 55 people the first night, 110 people the second night. And we showed that 2.5-hour documentary over a 2-night period. But I didn't just show the movie, because I prayed and prayed because I knew it was more than just a movie. I opened it, and this is way before Jose Initiative. I opened that night, and I still can't believe I said this. I stood in front of them, 55 people, and I said, I'm going to prove to you tonight and tomorrow night why voting pro-life is the most important issue, period.
Wow.
Then the second thing we did, I had to explain, because these just good old country folks, I needed to explain, what is worldview? We've got a biblical worldview. We've got a secular humanist worldview. There's a Marxist communist worldview. There's a New Age worldview. Now you get the Islamic worldview. I didn't go over necessarily all of them, but I went over the 3 big ones that pertain, to Planned Parenthood. And then third, we went over fetal development, because you have to make sure the church is back on the same page from the moment the sperm penetrates the egg. It's a new human being. That's not a fertilized egg. Okay, that's a new life. Okay, it's a new life. And so we went over fetal development from conception to 9 months. People are oohing and awing because it's a 4D video. Then we showed the first half of the Ma'afa 21 documentary, and we paused it. And when I walked in the night 2, the word had gotten out, and they doubled the population there.
Wow.
And then we finished the documentary, And then we went over the secular answers to pro-choice arguments, just from a secular standpoint, because you don't have to be a Christian to be pro-life, right? And then we cracked open the Word of God. Okay, so that's what happened. That was in June of 2009. So it's June, then July, August, September, October, November. 5 months later, I'm at a prayer vigil at my church begging God to tell me, what am I supposed to do? They made me promise I'd never stop. I'm white. They're mostly black. I'm crossing the racial political divide. We're talking politics. We're uniting a life. And all I could hear, it wasn't audible, but in prayer, because I was begging God fervently, all I could hear was, go interview Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And I knew who he was. I knew who he was. I'd already read 1 out of 3 of his books. And that's where the next leg of this journey begins. And it's the missing link. It's the missing link. This story alone can swing many people over to the pro-life side, both politically and just be pro-life. And then it can also mobilize many people who have sat out the realm of voting, okay? Because they realize, oh my God, by me sitting out, I've literally helped advance, and I don't know if we can put it in a chat or whatever, memorize it, to be pro-choice, to be pro-abortion, or to be just, well, I'm not gonna do anything because politics is below me, right? You've advanced the loss of parental rights, because the abortion industry steals our parental rights. You've advanced the rapid rise of breast cancer, because and I can talk to your audience on this on another presentation because it'll take too long, but if we can just kind of go with this for a minute. To abort, particularly the very first pregnancy, that very first baby is the best protection against breast cancer.
Wow.
And it's being kept. The Susan Komen organization, don't send your dollars to Susan Komen. Send them to Hosea Initiative. Susan Komen is in bed with Planned Parenthood. And I got the proof for you. Your listening audience, if they can go and watch, you can stream it. Watch the movie called Hush. And just do Hush breast cancer when you want to search it. Hush breast cancer, and you got the right movie if it looks like the Statue of Liberty, but she's been photoshopped to look like this, like Hush, with her finger over her lips. You, all your people, hundreds of thousands, watch the movie and then come over to my organization. And join. We've got an online community called Raise Up Your Voice. Raise Up Your Voice. Okay, join our online community. It's brand new. We don't have a whole lot of content in there. We're going to be uploading all these different podcasts and all that in there. But what we're looking for, Michael, is grassroots. I want a grassroots Terry Beatley in every single county across our nation. And that's not an audacious goal. That's only like 3,000 some people who are motivated, who they can stake their claim in their own county, in their state, and they can make sure all of their people eventually learn this: how abortion has fast-tracked breast cancer, how a vote for a pro-abortion candidate is a vote to eviscerate parental rights, how supporting pro-abortion people, candidates advances Margaret Sanger's Negro Project. Think about all the woke young people who think, oh, they're so woke, they're so perfect, they're so this and that. It's like, wait a minute, to support anything pro-choice is to be supporting Margaret Sanger's Negro Project. There is a reason why. Check this out. And maybe the numbers have changed a little bit, but the principle's the same. Black women who are of childbearing age represent about 3 to 4% of the nation's population. It's only 3 to 4% Black women who are of childbearing age. Okay, but they represent 36% of all abortions.
Oh,
3 to 4% represent 36. There's a reason for that. And we teach that in we call it pills and potions. We give seminars. So if you can catch my vision, imagine if we can have 100,000, 250,000 people on a live webinar, and we're literally taking this by storm. And then we've got the website now with the Raise Up Your Voice, and we can now get the people engaged at the county level, and we can identify who they are state by state by state. And we've got the educational tools at Jose Initiative. And this is so cool. Well, I got ahead of myself. So anyway, so in November, I'm at the prayer vigil asking, and God says, go interview Dr. Bernard Nathanson. So if you're a listening audience, Dr. Nathanson is the father of America's industry of abortion. He was the Dr. Fauci of yesteryear. Okay. Now, why is his story so important? And I'll sort of do a rhetorical kind of thing. And it would be if Dr. Fauci all of a sudden said, Michael Jaco, I'm coming clean. Would you interview me? And you get Dr. Fauci on your show, okay? And he begins telling all of your listening audience that everything he said, all the stats, all the everything, all about COVID and the jab, it was all lies. It was all propaganda. That's the Dr. Nathanson of the abortion industry. He came clean. And so I would love, I got to give you a chance to talk to me, ask me questions, say something, because I would love to go over the 8-point strategy at the right time. But I end up interviewing him on December 1st, 2009, right down the road from the man who would soon be our next president. It was a few years later, 6 years later. But I bet Donald Trump was right in Manhattan, New York, when little Terry Beatley was sitting in a very modest condo on Riverside Avenue, interviewing 83-year-old Dr. Nathanson, who was terminally ill with cancer. And he had been pro-life. Check this out. He had been 100% pro-life since 1979.
wow.
But when you let that baby-killing monster out of the proverbial box, it's like a big, snowball. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. He contemplated suicide in the second half of the 1980s. He was an atheist Jew. He had not a seedling of faith. Okay. And what drove him to become pro-life was he had started the first pro-abortion political action organization. They used to call it National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws, NARAL. And NARAL, depending on where you come from, NARAL, Pro-Choice America. This is before Planned Parenthood became outwardly pro-abortion. And in fact, in 1970, Nathanson went to Planned Parenthood, begging Planned Parenthood to join with Dr. Nathanson and NARAL to try to overturn the 140-year-old pro-life law in the state of New York that protected babies in the womb. You couldn't abort babies in the womb prior to 1970, okay? And Planned Parenthood refused to join with Dr. Nathanson and NARAL to promote legalizing abortion in New York. Most people have no idea. Nathanson was so mad, but he went back to his business partner. By the way, his business partner is Lawrence Lader, who was best friends with Margaret Sanger. Many people think he was like a lover of Margaret Sanger. He wrote the only approved biography of Margaret Sanger. And when she died in 1966, it was as if she passed her controlling birth baton over to Lawrence Lader, who, by the way, I'm not sure exactly what year, but probably by then he had already worked for the first card carrying communist on Capitol Hill. So
Wow.
radical revolutionary ideas were nothing new for Lawrence Lader. And he was up in New York. So he invites Nathanson and his wife over to dinner around 1968. And Lawrence Lader declares over the table that we need to get abortion legalized in all 50 states. And that was the beginning of NARAL, way before, what's not way, but before Planned Parenthood ever embraced abortion publicly. Margaret Sanger had no problem killing a baby, okay? But she didn't think America was quite ready for it. In fact, in her world population pamphlet in, I'm forgetting the year, I want to say it was 1958, but I could be off on my year. She actually warns women not to have an abortion because it kills an existing baby and the abortion may make you sterile. So when you do want a baby, you might not be able to have one.
Wow.
Yeah. And we haven't even gotten into the 8-point strategy yet.
So this Dr. Nathanson, he did 75,000 abortions according to the website.
Yeah.
And
including one of his own children.
oh my God. So tell us what it was that turned him.
Yeah. What turned him was, okay, I don't want to jump too far. So in 1970, they get New York's pro-life law overturned. They worked on that for 18 months and they overturned it in April of 1970. Governor Rockefeller made killing a baby through 24 weeks of pregnancy. That's a little baby you can like cradle in your arms in the ICU department, of the hospital. Okay. We can kill them all 24 weeks of pregnancy. Okay.
Rockefeller, how unusual that. Oh, exactly. We know about the Rockefellers. Jeez.
Yeah. And then Nathanson now is an OBGYN. He's an abortionist. He's a lobbyist. He's flying all over the United States. Then he ends up running the largest abortion mill. We don't call them clinics. Clinics are where you go to get well. It's an abortuary, like a mortuary. It's an abortuary. We need to call it for what it is. So he ran the largest abortuary in the Western Hemisphere in New York City.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah, good.
Yeah, where they wwere killing about 900 babies per week. Now that's just a drop in the bucket today. Okay. Sure. But 900 babies per week. And I mean, they were
how many doctors are involved in an organization like that could abort that many?
He has it written in his book. Honestly, I can't remember offhand, but they were running it like, 12 to 14 hours a day. This was not an 8-hour workday. And they had the scum of doctors, drug addicts, and they were working off commission. So the more abortions you could whip out every day, the more money you'd make, right? It was a cash cow. Wow. Yeah, and I write all about that in the book. Let's see. So,
and then the latest stuff, I mean, I don't want to jump too far again, but we just like throw this in there too, because we'll have to do a lot of shows. But the latest stuff is where they're making money off baby body parts.
Yes. Yeah.
Massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm gonna get my next Lamborghini from selling baby parts, and we've heard that in California. People saying.
Dr. Nathanson warned of that, and let me. I'm just going to make a note here. The warning. But you asked about what converted him. So, I mean, he was out the wazoo, aborting. He even aborted his own child. He had gotten a girlfriend pregnant. This was earlier on, but he aborted that baby. Didn't think twice about it. And now began to haunt him later on the rest of his life. Let's see. Then so he ran the abortuary in 1971, 1972. He was exhausted because he's also a husband. He's a father. He's a lobbyist. He was exhausted. St. Luke's Hospital in New York asks him if he would come and run the OBGYN department. Now, don't let the name of the hospital fool you. Good old probably Catholic named hospital, right? Mm-hmm. But at St. Luke's Hospital in New York City, They were birthing babies on one floor and they were slaughtering them on a different floor. Wow. And there were days that Nathanson would show up. He's like, wait a minute, am I here to kill or am I here to save the baby? You know, if a woman's going in premature labor, you know, whatever, 24 weeks, you know, he's like, wait a minute, am I here to kill or am I here to save? So perverted. So what happens is about 6 months, which mind you, this is in 1973, he celebrates the Roe v. Wade decision. He didn't know exactly when, but it was within 6 to 8 months in 1973. The hospital rolls in a brand new technology called real-time ultrasound. Wow. He had been seeing the still grainy photographs of babies in the womb, but they were just so grainy and unclear. But wait a minute, now he could see the heart beating that once could only be heard. Now he could hear it and see it. He could see the baby smile and stretch and yawn. And Dr. Nathanson, when I sat with him on December 1st, 2009, he said, Terry, this is a direct quote. He said, real-time ultrasound was the bomb. It made everything come alive. And he began bonding with his second patient. And then, now he's got a big dilemma on his hands, sparing a bunch of details. It takes him 2 years to resign from NARAL. You know, he was begging with him. He's like, look, we got a moral, ethical problem on our hands. Yeah. The science has caught up with their life. It's like Fauci right now, right? But Fauci hasn't come clean, right? Okay, all the lies are catching up with Fauci. Well, all those lies were catching up with Bernard. You know, it's not a baby, it's just a blob of tissue. Well, blobs of tissue don't have little fingers and hands and they're smiling in the camera, right? You know, and so
I remember when I saw both my children in the womb.
Really?
I was like, wow. And so I could see how that would turn. And I've heard it's women that were going to get aborted, they would see the baby in the womb and they were like, nope.
Yeah.
So it
made him do, and it took him a few years, but it was by 1979, he was 100% against abortion. And I think it's prudent to cover the three biggest ones that the abortion industry hides behind. Oh, Terry, well, what about rape, incest, life of the mother? Let's talk about those. All right. Life. Nobody says let the mother die. If the mother's life is in danger, by all means, take the baby out of her womb, but you take the baby out with the best intention of saving the baby's life, not crushing the skull and pulling the arms and legs off of that baby. Okay. And I say it in graphic detail because we as Americans, we have not been hearing the silent screams of those babies. And we've become very numb to even the word abortion. We're numb.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's life of the mother. Now let's address the next one, rape. Okay, we do not punish the children for the crimes of the father. Period. We don't. If that woman does not want that baby, provide life and a future for that baby through adoption. That's a beautiful thing. There are like 1 million couples out there who cannot conceive. Mm-hmm. You know, there are a whole host of different reasons, abortion being one of them, you know. I mean, meaning if the woman had 1, 2, 3 abortions, she has a very weakened cervix, and many times she'll miscarry, you know, because the cervix isn't meant to be pried open and abort, right? It's like common sense. Okay, so life of the mother, you know, rape. And there's no worse violation than a woman being raped and then also have to endure, you know, this vacuum sounding machine and then kill a baby and then have to deal with the mental trauma that she didn't just get rid of a blob of tissue. It's a baby. And the thing is, we all know it today. Back in the 70s, they used to get away with the lie, oh, just blob of tissue. No, that people know it now. And then incest. We're going to address that one too. Dr. Nathanson did not realize by setting up the abortion industry that it would undergird the sex trafficking industry, because a lot of those young women conceive. Well, they can be taken over to Planned Parenthood and get their little private abortion with their pimp, right? Whoever's sex trafficking them. And it's no different with the father who is committing incest. Okay. He can take his 14-year-old daughter in, and guess what? He doesn't have to say he's the daddy. Okay. But daddy's going to make sure she gets an abortion. And now he can do that over and over and over. And just like boyfriends who want, they didn't have any problem having sex with their girlfriend. Oh, but now that, that produced a result called a human life, the boyfriend now wants to coerce the girlfriend to go have the abortion, and that's wrong. So life, abortion is an intrinsic evil. There's nothing good that comes out of abortion, period. Plus, and maybe on another show, we can get into the whole breast cancer thing and why are all these abortion mills, so many put in Black neighborhoods. That's not by mistake. So anyway, so Nathanson, he's completely convicted. And then in the early 80s, I think it was 1983, 1984, he asks an abortionist friend of his to make an ultrasound video of a first trimester abortion. Because Dr. Nathanson's wondering what's going on inside the womb with the baby, before, and imminently, during the abortion. Mm-hmm. And then together, Nathanson and the nurse and the abortionist, they watch the raw video footage. And what they see causes the nurse to quit her job that day. The abortionist, Dr. J. Kellinson out of New Jersey, to, from what I understand, never do another abortion again. And it causes Dr. Nathanson to go down a very bad, cyclone of suicidal thoughts. Wow. Because what they see on this, I believe the baby was 10 weeks old. I'm just kind of drawing the blank. It was 10, 11 weeks old. What they see is, first on the heart monitoring, the heart rate as I'm going to be graphic because your listeners need to understand this. Yeah. We are not hearing the silent screams. And that's the name of the documentary. And as far as I know, you can still watch it out on YouTube. I can't believe YouTube hadn't taken it down. Let's see. But I have the old 8-track. So if they take it down, we're still going to figure out a way to make sure America knows. But what viewers see, and it is a little bit grainy, but he points it out. He said, first off, the heartbeat goes through the roof when the suction tube is getting closer and closer to the amniotic sac. And when it bursts open the amniotic sac, now interpret that the way you want. For me, I mean, the heart rate to me goes up when the baby can sense danger, this loud sucking sound. The baby's been used to hearing the mother's voice, right? Or daddy, maybe daddy whispering, talking to the baby, not the sound of a vacuum cleaner, okay? And then before the suction tube sucks that baby into multiple different parts, and then you see the baby open up his or her mouth, and this is a direct quote from Dr. Nathanson. The baby opens up his or her mouth in the silent scream of a child threatened imminently with extinction, and then it's gone. And that was a human life.
Wow.
That's it. That's it right there.
I'll put this in the chat, guys. So, but here it is. I kind of scrolled through a little bit. It's not pretty. So,
yeah. And then
everyone needs to see this. That's, thinking the abortion is cool. So,
well, I've got one more, and I dare your listening audience. It's like we have to be reawakened. It's just like all of you Patriot podcasters, right? We're all trying to awaken Americans to what is truth. What are the lies? Where have the attacks, how have we been attacked? How is it now we send off young women to secular universities for sure, and they come back radicalized to some different degrees. That all has a history, right? And so my lane, it's to stay in this lane of life, fulfill the promise I made to Dr. Nathanson. I don't even think I told you what the promise was. At the end of the interview, I said, Dr. Nathanson, if you have a message for America, and if you tell me what it is, I promise you, I'll deliver it across our nation until it becomes common knowledge or until Roe v. Wade is overturned, whichever one comes first. And that was the only time in the interview, which was a very somber interview, that there was ever like a little twinkle of, I call it hope, in his eyes. And Dr. Nathanson looked up at me and he said, yes. He said, teach the strategy. And I keep holding this booklet up. It's an 8-point strategy of how I deceived America. And then, so we all need to know, what's the 8-point strategy of propaganda, which I don't know if we have time to go over today, but I'll come back and we'll do it again. But we want everybody to get the fact check booklet. You can go right onto the homepage, click on the link, boom, get your fact check book. It's $4. And we're hoping people will go in together and get cases, because by the time you get them at a case, I think it's like $1.65 a booklet. It's 200 in a case. They're very economical, and it's the story that people can do a 180-degree turn for $1.65. Michael, we've saved America and obliterated the abortion industry at $1.65 a head. I think that's pretty good math. I don't know about you, right? So anyway,
I don't know if anybody that if they just watched this show would still go get an abortion. But
no,
maybe we can get some more information out there. Absolutely.
Call Terry B. I know people who would love to have a baby. So anyway, so Dr. Nathanson says, in addition to teach a strategy, he said, then tell America that the co-founder of NARAL says to love one another. Abortion is not love. Stop the killing. The world needs more love, and I'm all about love now. And I reached over and I shook his hand and I promised him I'm going to get it done. Of course, I didn't know how, but God did, and God does, and God's doing it. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think 2026 is literally going to be the year that, as long as I stay, I know what the tip of the spear is, and the tip of the spear is it's kind of two parts, but it's still the tip. Okay. It's Nathanson, and it's helping America understand Planned Parenthood has nothing to do with women's health care. And it must be, and this is biblical, but it can only happen if the people get educated. It isn't about, if we get enough Republicans in Washington, D.C. Those are men without chests, right? Like G.K. Chesterton said, they're men without chests. I think that was Chesterton. They have not the backbone to defund Planned Parenthood. I'm talking about cut it off at the root. The only way that's going to happen, I'm talking like not one red bloody cent needs to go to Planned Parenthood, because it's never been good from the very inception. Okay, we must stop it. It's a behemoth beast, and it can and it will be defunded and destroyed. And like it says in Isaiah 31 and 22, it's going to be thrown out like an old rag and done away with. And there's a whole backstory to my belief in what I just said.